Good evening, everyone. Looks like they're bringing out a few more chairs, got a few more people coming in. Again, my name is Mayor Craig Newton, and I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedules to be here with us tonight. And this is no surprise to me because Norcross has always had an engaged citizenry. I'm a lifer, been here all my life, and I've always seen it like this. So, no surprise. Thank you again for being here. Just a couple of things before we have our facilitator to come up and talk about our expectations and our format. The P&Z, the DDA, the ARB, and the City Council are, of course, here tonight. This is the first time that we are collectively hearing this information. So you're hearing it the same way that we are hearing it. It's important that we all believe that we all get the same information. And we're doing that tonight by having all of our boards here. City Council members, raise your hand that are here. Josh Baird, Dan Watts, ARB members that are here, raise your hand. Thank you all for being here. DDA members, raise your hand. Thank you all for being here. And P&Z, thank you all for being here tonight. And before I turn it over to Paige, there's just one bit of, I guess, it's not really house cleaning, but it's legal. For all of our board members here tonight, in order to ensure due process, you can, of course, have an opinion about this rezoning and this project, but yes, I agree to this project, or no, I don't agree to this project in this meeting will not be acceptable because it violates due process. You're open and free to ask any questions that you like, but I need to clear that up to ensure there are no litigation issues, okay? We can just put it like that. Okay, Paige Havens, Paige, come up. Oh, there you go. Paige has facilitated some of these meetings several times before. You all know her. She's a tough cookie, and she's not going to let it get out of hand. So if she says, yes, you're in order, you're in order. If she says, no, you're not in order, you're not in order. So let me turn it over to you so we can go ahead and get started. Thank you, Paige.
First of all, for those of you who are coming in, we got room up front. Come on, let's be a good Lutheran.
You're Baptist.
And then that way we don't have to disrupt sound with trying to add new chairs. So I'm excited to be here tonight. Who's excited to be here? Okay. All right. Because I tell you, I'm constantly amazed at how much Norcross is moving and shaking, exploring ideas, looking at new things. I love the fact that you all come out and care. So this is an opportunity for us tonight to learn about a new development. So this is really a public information session. It is not a shouting match. It is not a boxing match. Somebody asked me, did I actually bring a water gun? I said, no, I brought a taser. But I'm just kidding. I didn't really. But I do want to let you know that this is an opportunity for you to ask questions. It's so easy for the rumor mill to get started. And misinformation can get out there about what quantities are or what they aren't. And I love that Norcross is so transparent. They'll invite the development team in, and they'll bring them all in and say, let's just talk about this, okay? So the format is going to be, I'm going to let the development team do their song and dance, okay? I even heard they had a song or a cheerlead or something. I don't know. So, but we're going to let them do their thing and walk through this project. We're going to give them good consideration during that time, okay? And then after that, I'm going to give you a chance to ask questions, okay? So, as the mayor said, this is not a time to say, this is the stupidest idea ever, I'll never support this, because there's not going to be other opportunities for public input, okay? So we're going to have an opportunity not to ask questions, get facts, and clarify information. We are recording this tonight. So if you do anything goofy, you could end up on YouTube. All right? And we're recording it for the purposes still inform those citizens who couldn't be here, to let them hear the facts the same way you heard the facts. So all the information is getting out in good due order, okay? So does everybody understand the way we're going to play tonight? All right, so with that, I am excited to turn it over to Karen, who is going to introduce herself and her team and let them unveil the next exciting new project of the WestRock.
Hello, can everybody hear me? I'm not used to this public speaking thing. Good, okay. I'm Kim Bucklow, I'm with Alliance Residential. We're a large national development company based out of Phoenix, Arizona, but have been here in Atlanta for a long time, and we are regionally based here in Atlanta. And I've been in Atlanta for about 7 years, but with Alliance for 5, and done 6 or 7 projects with them here in Atlanta. So I'll talk more about that as we get through kind of some of the projects. But before we go into what we are and who Alliance is, I wanted to back up a little bit because we've actually been working on this site and this project for probably close to 5 or 6 months now. And so I want you to get a little bit of the background and the history of how we got to where we are today, getting to the point of being able to present a proposal to you guys. So I'm going to have a slew of people I'm going to do a quick introduction with and let them just come through and kind of give some of the history and the background. So the first person who's going to come up is Bert Collins. He's with WestRock, and he's going to give a little bit of history on just WestRock and they were leaving and what reasonings, and then kind of some of the history before I was involved. Drew Levine with Colliers is going to talk about the market itself and what other uses, potential uses, things like that that could have happened to the site. And then Jessica Hill is a zoning attorney who's going to talk about the actual zoning on the site, what it is today, and then what we're proposing. And then finally, John Walker with Kenley Horn, who's a traffic consultant, is going to give an update on what the traffic results are, so that's an important factor in the development. And then we'll kind of move into what the proposal is and why we proposed it and how. So with that, I'm going to start with Bert and let him come on.
Thank you, Kim. Can everybody hear me? This is
Oh, use the microphone.
All right, everybody can hear me now?
Yeah.
So I'm with WestRock. Interesting side note, my 89-year-old father, turns 89 on Friday, grew up right over here somewhere and used to play on the street by the station when it was all dirt roads. So we have a little bit of history there. So WestRock has been a part of this community for over 50 years, and we continue to be a part of the community. We have over 400 employees in the Jefferson Plaza building. That is still in the city of Norcross. We have a box plant right over here on Buford Highway. So we're still a big part of this community. But after the 50 years of us being here in Norcross, we simply outgrew our campus. We had 2 or 3 people in one office. We split them up and cubed them up and crammed people in there as much as we could. And we simply had to do something else. So the decision was made about a year ago, last January, that we had to find another headquarters. And we looked all over the city. This process had taken place for quite a while. And we knew we had to sell the Thrasher campus. And the primary objective from the CEO down was not a sales price, was a best use for that site that would help the community and help Norcross. In the marketing process, we had several investor types that came and made offers on the properties. Those investors had no plans, no drawings. They just wanted to buy the property and sit on it and do something we didn't feel was best for the community. We tried to market the space to a corporate user to come in, but corporate users were looking at the same constraints that WestRock had: size, transportation, public transportation, that sort of thing. So we really had no corporate interest of a company moving into that campus. So after several offers we had on the site, Alliance came to WestRock with a plan and a map of what they wanted to do. And we felt like at that time that was certainly the best offer and the best use and probably the best thing for that site in the city of Norcross. That was our thoughts. So that's kind of where we are with that right now, and I think Kim and her team have done a great job. And I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody wants to throw anything at me. Okay, we're going to get on with it. Next.
Thanks. I think Bert covered some of this. So Drew Levine with Colliers, International Commercial Real Estate Company, who represent WestRock, and we're engaged to sell the campus. So we did talk to a number of users and investors in terms of office on the site. I think the costs, as Bert mentioned, are going to be prohibitive to redevelop that from an office standpoint. We're starting from scratch on the site. And from a public transportation standpoint, getting people to that site is just not the type of access for office users. By way of comparison, if you look at the bottom here, so if you look at the Norcross market on the top left of that chart and the Sugarloaf market, by example, you can see that Sugarloaf's got a 6% vacancy. It may be tough to see from the back, I'm sorry, but 6% vacancy compared to the Peachtree Corners Norcross market, which has about 22% vacancy. So there's a lot more vacant space in Peachtree Corners and Norcross, and we don't need to go too deep into that, but the feedback we got from office users was that this site is not as much an office site anymore as it is other uses. So that's why we brought Kim and the Alliance team in. But Sugarloaf is sort of main and main to the northeast in terms of office. And by comparison, Alpharetta and Central Perimeter, they're kind of in the high teens in terms of vacancy, 12%, 15%. But there's a lot of space on the market in Peachtree Corners and Norcross, including some significant move-outs like WestRock and Media and Fiserv and other corporate users that have moved out of the area. So it's just trending in a different direction in terms of the use of space out here. We then approached retail users and investors, and the feedback we got from retail was that the site just didn't have the visibility and the traffic count. We've got some ability to back that up coming up. But the rooftops in the area were already supported by downtown Norcross retail. So there wasn't a need for more retail on the site, and other areas like the Sugarloaf area, Fawn Industrial Boulevard, et cetera, Johns Creek were already serving the retail demand. So it wasn't the best use for that. And then on the residential end, we did talk to a few exclusively single-family or townhome developers, and the site just needed more density to justify the site and what you could put on there. Didn't make sense for a single use. And so I think what they've got on the table is a mixed-use proposal, several different uses and densities that Kim's going to discuss in a moment. One other thing, I just wanted to say that what we've heard from corporate users, we represent a lot of corporate users in the area, is that there's not an adequate supply of corporate millennial housing, is something they say. So they want to move their businesses to this area. Oftentimes there's not either affordable or high-end, both sides of the spectrum, high-quality rental and for-sale units in this area. So I think it's certainly nice, it fits nicely with that as well.
Good evening, my name is Jessica Hill, and I am the zoning and land use attorney representing Alliance Residential. This slide here shows the zoning map. You see that the star is the property which is currently zoned M1, which is light industry. And for some color on what that means, office use is allowed, and a bunch of light industrial uses like outdoor storage, mini warehouse, farmers markets, things of that nature. The residential and kind of more lighter commercial uses that you would think of are not allowed by the current zoning. What we are proposing to do is rezone to the Design Concept Development District. And that district is one of the newer zoning districts that allows an applicant to present a plan and then be conditioned on that site plan. And that site plan includes elevations, it includes a landscape plan, it includes all the setbacks, all the uses, all of the density. So the plan that we are presenting tonight is our first stab at a plan that we think works for the site. And obviously that will evolve as we continue to have these discussions. But ultimately, if the zoning is approved, it would be based on the specific site plan with the specific elevation. So I just want to make that very clear as far as what the zoning will do. I'm going to let John Walker talk about traffic.
I'm John Walker. I'm a traffic engineer with Kimley Horn & Associates. Good evening. So one of the questions is, so how much traffic are we talking about with this proposed development? How does it compare to the existing office development that's there today? Which is more, which is less? So what we did is we looked at the current existing I'm going to walk over here so you can see it. Today, that's what's here today. 178,000 square feet of office and 26,000 square feet of warehouse. That's 1,942 trips a day. That's total over 24 hours. That's roughly 971 in, 971 out over a 24-hour period. The AM peak rush hour is 222 cars, 228 in the PM peak hour. That's 1 hour. That's like in the morning inflow in the morning, in the afternoon out in the evening. This is the proposed land use mix under the current plan, which shows you how many residential units, 40,000 square feet of office, 10,000 square feet of retail. It's a more daily traffic, 18% more daily traffic. But the key thing is, when we do traffic studies, we look at the morning rush hour and the afternoon rush hour. We call that the AM peak hour, the PM peak hour. What you'll see here, there's less AM peak traffic, less PM peak traffic. So it's 29% less traffic in the morning rush hour, 8% less traffic in the PM peak hour. You say, why is that? Well, office has heavy inflow in the morning, heavy out in the afternoon. When you have a retail component, it's all days. So you have a little bit more during the off-peak. So you have ins and outs, ins and outs, ins and outs. So you would have more over a 24-hour period. But the key thing is you have less traffic impact during the peaks. And that's the one we're worried about, is the AM peak and the PM peak. So this is actually less traffic impact in the morning, less traffic impact in the afternoon versus the existing uses there today. Also, I would note that because this is a mixed-use development with both residential and non-residential, you have back and forth interaction between the uses. It's also, this traffic here, that's actually about 104 in and 104 out. It's very balanced. It's balanced because you have some office leaving and you have residential, so it's like reverse flow. Residential and office is reverse flow. So anyway, this traffic is very directional, because you have loading and unloading, that's very dramatic peaks. This is more balanced because of the mix of uses. We did do a traffic study. The traffic study's been submitted to the city. They have it. We did traffic counts. We looked at the 4 critical intersections adjacent to the site. The current development, as you know, is not really generating a lot of traffic. It is generating a little bit. We left that traffic on the network, and then we took our proposed new traffic and just laid it on top and ran the numbers, and all the adjacent intersections adjacent to the site are all going to operate at acceptable level of service from a traffic perspective. So that's the summary on traffic.
So Jessica did a good job saying this, but I want to reiterate this. So this is the first time we're getting this in front of you guys, and this is an iterative process, so we don't anticipate changes as we go. But this is the first, this is the first step, and there's many more times and opportunities that we're going to be able to talk to you guys and communicate, get your feedback, and that's the point of these meetings, is to incorporate that and figure out how we can create a good development. So. This is a rendering of this site, and what I was going to do, I'm going to talk a little bit about Alliance first. As I said, we're a nationally based company, and what we try to do, there's a couple important things about who we are. We're vertically integrated, so we don't just develop, we also construct and manage the property. So we're fully integrated, and that allows us to kind of control the whole process, but it also assures who you're getting. You're getting the whole time through the whole process. And so we're one of the largest private development companies, but we are institutionally capitalized. Our biggest partners are AIG, Prudential, and Goldman Sachs, so we have a pretty big bank account behind us. And so that's it's something that is important for the ability to actually get the project done. And the other thing, what is sort of a big philosophy of Alliance and of our company, is we like to create communities. That's what we're passionate about. You will never see the exact same development anywhere. We really focus on what the site is and what the land and who the customer is in the area, and we build to that. And that's something that we think is pretty unique, because we're really intentional about what we're developing. These are some of the projects that are in the area that I would love to tour you guys through or talk to you about or anything. But a couple projects that I've personally worked on that are addresses in areas. And then so to kind of roll into what the proposal is for this project, I wanted to remind us of what the goals were for Norcross and this area, sub-area. It's, you want it to be dynamic and welcoming, and that's part of what we want to with the mixed use component, and to incorporate a diversity of housing types, connectivity, and public areas. So why mixed use? Why does this make sense? And I'm not gonna expand upon this very much, but as you know, the boomers and the millennials are the biggest demographic groups now in our society. And the boomers are, we're seeing a lot of demographic changes and shifts in how people live. You have many people wanting to downsize, and then you also have millennials who have the highest rate of rental, waiting longer to get married and start a family and buy homes. And so those two things are kind of what's driving a lot of new housing types. And they both want the exact same thing, which is high quality, high-end finishes, walkability to retail, restaurants, services, parks. And so I'm going to focus mostly on the housing demand because that's most of what I've heard in questions thus far. And so what this graph is showing you is that you'll see a peak. This is kind of more macro related to Atlanta, but at the peak kind of pre-recession, we were building 3 times as many housing units in the area as we are today. But our population, this is up to 2016, but our population, we're basically back to where we were pre-recession. We dipped and we come back. And so that's the blue bars here. And then the gray bars are the housing starts across the whole metro area. And so essentially pre-recession, the Atlanta MSA was adding about 1.8 people per new household. And now we're at about 4.7 per new housing unit, which is really, really low for the housing starts. And then dialing it into kind of Gwinnett County area. Gwinnett County has had the highest population growth rate out of all the counties in the Atlanta MSA. And so what this is, I tried to make it apples to apples, so 2010 to 2016, through 2016, there's been a little under 32,000 units that are needed, and that's based on the household size of 3.21 people, which is the straight off census data. So you have that many housing needs, statistically speaking, but only a little under 14,000 that have been built since then. So you have a pretty big shortfall of that. And then of the rental that's been built, there's only been a little bit over 6,000, and that includes a couple projects currently under construction and some that have been proposed but not started construction yet. And so that, in comparison to Atlanta, where you're 4.7 people per new housing unit, you're at 7.4, which it's probably pretty rare to find a house that has 7 people in it. And then, so this, you can see, this is dialing in even for just the rental product. What this is kind of trying to show is there really has been a pretty big lapse of rental product that's been developed in Gwinnett County, especially kind of post-recession. And in the Norcross area, which is kind of circled a little bigger area, could do corners too, but there's only 2 projects that have been zoned since 2010, and one that's under construction right now. It's 295 units, and then the Lillian Lake Park that I'm sure you guys all know about, that's 195 units right over here. So who is our customer for the project? Because that's what everybody keeps asking. And it's, for us, we think it's probably not quite the boomer, but it's these 2, we pulled, it's called the Tapestry Market, but it's who is in and around this area. And it's the city lights people and the enterprising professionals, which I love when they talk about who these people are. But it's essentially your millennial and then a little bit older Gen Xer. And so the city lights are pretty much more of a person buying a townhome, and the enterprising professional is more of a rental person. So I'm not going to read all that, but and then what's important about who these customers are is that it is not just the project itself that is helping from a tax-based perspective, but it's helping on the retail side too. So one of the things that we love so much about this site in this area is the walkability to downtown. And what downtown needs to thrive and survive is people shopping and spending money at the restaurants. And so these are just, some fun facts that, retail sales grow by about 30% when you have the walkability, and then most retail sales also come 25 to 30% both the housing and nearby. So now on to the proposal. But I'm really teasing you guys because I still haven't shown you the site plan yet. And there's a reason for that. So what you're going to see, and I'm going to bring Ben up here in just a second, who's our project architect. There's a couple components that we felt were really important about this site. Now, this is a private development, so we haven't been told we have to do this, but it's something that we feel like is very important for a mixed-use community. And a couple things, one of the things that we love about the site is, or what we love about mixed use is having green space and public open space. So one of the items that you'll see in the development proposal is a big green space that the whole community can enjoy. And the idea is to make it kind of flow out from where the commercial space is. And the other component of the site that we would propose to do is keep some of the current buildings that are on the site and adaptively reuse them. So the bottom picture is almost emulating what those brick buildings are right there, and the use in between. We also have the townhomes, and there's 60 of them on the site right now. And I've heard a question of, well, we have a lot of other white lots in the area, and is there a need? So in the peak of the recession, I guess, how you say that, the biggest dip, we had about only historically there was 3 townhomes per year being bought, and then but the inventory for townhome lots was 32 months. Now the average is about 30 to 32 townhomes a year, and the inventory is 10 months. So it is a very, very healthy market right now. And then this is the commercial space and kind of our concepts for what that's going to be. We really imagine this being probably most successful as a community workspace. We feel like that's a part of the community that's missing, a hole in sort of that commercial area. And then we'll have community amenities throughout, which include kind of typical things with club rooms, fitness, the bike share programs. I think that's something that the city is wanting to do, to have a bike share program. We'd be really excited about participating in that. And then quality, we build only Class A product, and so it's all high-end finishes, designer lighting, hard surface countertops, quartz and granite, hardwood floors, stainless steel appliances, that kind of thing. So, all right. So now let's take Ben up here to help explain how we got it. So I mentioned some of the constraints being specifically the buildings that we want to keep on the site. So that's kind of where we started with, and then I'll let you.
Sure.
Go.
Good evening. My name is Ben Hudgens, architect with Brock Hudgens Architects. Adjust this. So as Ken mentioned, we took this as an urban design challenge. Existing campus, how do we create a community and a village here with a mix of uses? The first was the need to create a community green space. So keeping in mind that we wanted a space that was public and on the main frontage of the site and centrally located, that was the starting point. Of course, the existing buildings, which you can see in the light purple and pinkish color, those are the 3 of the existing buildings. There are more buildings on the campus, including some warehouse space, an old metal bungalow building, and a couple of one-story buildings that wouldn't be salvaged. But these buildings were the ones with most character. They're the brick buildings that you would recognize as you drive by. So our approach was keep those buildings, let them frame that front central courtyard, and then look for areas to introduce some townhome, again, a mix of uses and residential unit types on the site. Suggested that we do townhomes over on the west side of the plan and over on the far east side. And then what that leaves is the central area over on the east where we would look to do new construction. And these would be our rental units. And again, working around the existing buildings with the existing topography, this was our initial approach to the site layout. One important note is the idea here is to create a framework and a street network that allows passage through the site, good access, and an inclusive development. So none of those streets would be gated. The structured parking, which you see the gray box on the top right, would be secure access, but everything else is open to the public. Plenty of on-street parking, again, so that folks can utilize that public green space and take advantage of the commercial space and the other program on the site. I think that covers it.
Excuse me. Can you help with the orientation? Where are the existing streets? I don't know what's up and down on here.
Thrasher is on the bottom of the page.
Where are the railroad tracks?
Railroad tracks are here.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
So Thrasher is here, railroad tracks are immediately adjacent to Thrasher. Is that all?
Thank you.
Norcross is here.
Okay, Sevens is right here. This is Thrasher. This is Hunter. And then West Beach Street.
So which one of those are commercial?
This right here is the commercial in the center. So the idea was to bring the most intense use into the center of the site. And to be able to kind of spill out with this part here.
Where's the garage?
The garage is right here.
How many spaces?
It will be, it's about, so currently on site there's 490 parking spaces. We are going to be about 460.
So if you live over there, you park over there?
So these townhomes will be self-parked here, 2-car garages. There is on-street parking here, all around here. You see these right here.
Where's the apartment? New construction?
New construction, and then we will adaptively reuse, there'll be lofts in these 2 buildings.
Where's your front tail and where's the park?
I think, should we get microphones and?
Why don't we just hold your questions for a little bit, we can come back to the site plan.
I think we only have one other.
I want her to get through her presentation first, and then we can go back to some specific questions.
This is really the last slide, it's just kind of the timing and the next steps, but, so we're basically at questions.
Is this already approved?
No, no. So, this is our first meeting. We may or may not make it to the April 4th meeting. That is a little bit dependent on how, how this goes and the questions and the tweaks we need to make and things like that. So it's nothing is set in stone. This is a, for discussion, to ask questions. And then the email here is intended for actual commentary. Okay, I'll let Paige talk about that when we come back to questions.
What would the total population be of the new subdivision? What would the total population of that be?
All right, hold on just a second. So what we're going to do is, can you maybe help me wander around? Let's not get too close. So if you'll cover that side of the room, I'll cover this side, or somebody can grab the mic there, but I think, so your question, sir, is?
Yeah, thank you. My question is, what would the total population of this site plan be?
As in residents.
As in residents, how many people would be living in this? How many cars then, and what would that do to the traffic in the immediate vicinity?
Okay, who wants to field that?
I'll start it.
So it's, the total population is probably around 450 people at the rental component, and then if there's 2 people per townhome, that's another 120. So that'd be the total.
What about the office?
And then the office during the day, it's, right now that commercial building is probably about 30,000 square feet. It depends on how it ends up getting programmed and what commercial space we can actually lease up there. So I don't know the answer to that. And then,
So it's fair to say that that's educated guesses at this point, not knowing how many people will actually live in each unit, but we know what it would be allowed,
So
the maximum.
would it be fair to say 1.5 to 1.75 cars per? If you're talking about 800 people,
What was your
you're
thought
talking about
behind that?
800 people, you're talking about 1,600, 1,500, 1,600 cars and incremental traffic associated with it.
We covered all that.
You went over this. I'm sorry on that.
Yeah, the traffic study slide shows the traffic volumes in the morning rush hour and afternoon rush hour. Slightly less traffic impact with the proposed development versus the current office development. The traffic study documented that AM peak rush hour, 157.
So what is your?
The morning rush hour. Yeah, so what we do is when we go out and count cars, we count for multiple hours during the morning, multiple hours in the afternoon.
Was this done over just one day?
It was done last month, and so then we take the traffic generation of the proposed use and we overlay it onto the existing street network, the existing volume that's already out there. We add ours on top and we analyze the 4 critical intersections adjacent to the site. This traffic study has been submitted to the city.
Okay, and the question was, you don't just do traffic on one day?
We do car counts on either Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday.
But is it from like 6 in the morning to 8 in the morning? Is it from 8 in the morning to 10?
The peak hour, we straddle the peak hour. We straddle the peak hour, sometimes it's 7 to 9, sometimes it's 4 to 6, sometimes it's 3:30 to 6:30. And then after we get multiple hours of data, we hone in on the one peak hour. And intersection by intersection will differ. Depending on where you are, it differs. But that window, the peak is in that window somewhere. And we hone in on that one peak hour.
Okay, let me come over here.
So the question was, WestRock still fully in whenever this study was done, meaning did they have the numbers of employees that they've had? And also, did this study, how did it find as far as just overall? Because it seems like the focus is on peak time, but what about now? The current development was primarily during weekday uses, but whoever would be living here would be there 24/7. So what does it do more generally, all hours of the day, to the immediate area?
Are those specifics in the traffic report?
Yes, they are.
Okay, so the traffic report, Rudolph, is that something that we can put, it's public information, and it is on the website already? Okay.
So standard traffic impact study guidelines, you look at the worst hour in the morning, worst hour in the afternoon. When traffic dies down, it goes lighter during off-peak. We don't analyze when traffic has dropped 50%. We analyze it when it's at peaks.
Let me just add real quick, at our peak, right before we moved, we had about 630 employees assigned to that campus. So that was a challenge some days with 495 parking spaces, but that's how many people we had there. Also keep in mind, we had daily 18-wheel truck traffic in and out of our campus. That goes away. We had sometimes 2 or 3 of those a day, and along with other big box trucks. That component of it goes away with the residents. We started moving out in November, and the last move was February 9th.
And they did this traffic study on February 8th.
So this traffic comparison is a standard office, not his office. You heard him describe how many employees, so I'm sure he was generating a lot more traffic than, say, the standard general textbook office. Okay, so when we go do counts, that office is not fully operational, correct? Okay, so pretend like there's nothing there. Well, we took our proposed development and our proposed traffic and we added it to the network. His traffic is going to zero, right? Because we move in, he's zero. We add ours on top, so that's how it's done, that's the approach.
All right, I'll let you ask the question.
Did your traffic projections take into account the new residences being built off of West Key Street?
So generally what we do when we do traffic counts, we look at historical growth rates in the area, and because there's development going on constantly, there's population growth going on constantly, Gwinnett County population is growing, and we project out growth patterns, and then we add our traffic on top of it.
But this is an exception to growth tax. This isn't one home, two homes. You're adding, how many homes on Kelly Street? 47 homes. And there's also going to be 47, 48 to 50 more homes in 7 coming next year.
Point noted. So, yes, sir.
Can we also talk about the impact of the construction-related traffic and what that's going to do for the 2 years that this proposed development is under construction? Could you bring the site back up and show us what lanes are going to be blocked off due to construction deliveries and tractor trailers and equipment pulling in and out?
So the great thing about this site is that I've worked on sites where there's one access point in and out. This has multiple access points and multiple roads around. Really the only handicap we have is against the 7 side, because there'll be a boundary there that's on a public street. But it should be pretty balanced out on the traffic.
Sure about that?
I'm positive. We do a lot of infill development.
You can't bring trucks over Hope Bridge. Is that still true? Yeah. So, all right, so what is the flow going to be? Not like.
And that may be a premature.
I don't know the answer right now.
I appreciate that question, but maybe we can, once the site is proposed, actually approved, I think I'd like to pause that question if you don't mind.
I think you should figure that out before you approve it.
I think that that's a great suggestion, so, all right. Hold on. Yes, sir. You first. There are 3 microphones floating. I see who has them. I'm coming to you.
For the traffic study, what I noticed as I looked at the traffic study from online was available, it only accounts for the adjacent roads. However, it misses out or doesn't account for the inlets and outlets to our community. We're surrounded or bounded in Norcross by Jimmy Carter, Buford Highway, Peachtree Industrial Boulevard, and Colton Bridge. If you've taken any time to drive on those roads, there's significant traffic. In terms of a traffic study, looking at the full impact of the community, is this something that you'll do in the future as accounting for how you get in and out from the highways to get to 285, to get to 85? Because currently, what I see, it doesn't only account for just the adjacent roads.
I'll let John help too, but my understanding is there is a lot of other traffic studies being done with like Jimmy Carter and GDOT roads and South Peachtree and West Peachtree that are in the works. So,
So knowing that the traffic impact is less, that tends to say smaller study network. But we'd be happy to work with staff and if there's another critical intersection. But I will say, Jimmy Carter, Buford Highway, there's plans to improve that intersection. Gwinnett County, there's a study. I brought it with me to do improvements along Jimmy Carter at Buford Highway. Additional lanes at that intersection, because if you want to, that's a choke point.
2030.
I'll let you ask your question, please.
In regards to construction, I live on Country Street now and they're building a neighborhood and it's already impacted my ability to run with my dog because half of the time the construction trucks are blocking the sidewalks and there's so much material on the sidewalks. So if this is going to take 2 years to build, what does that mean for those of us that like to use our outdoor space in our neighborhood that's calm and quiet and not covered in trucks and debris?
usually when we build, we built on the inside of the sidewalk line. I don't know that there are sidewalks around this entire site.
There are.
So it would be built on the inside of that. So it should not impede your jogging path unless for some reason, there may be a temporary, if we have to connect utilities or something like that and close the roads temporarily. But other than that, you usually build and put the construction fence line on the inside of the sidewalk areas.
That's right, and everything would get staged within that boundary. The site is big enough to stage and build without taking the right of way and parking trucks in the right of way. And so I don't think that would be an issue. There hasn't been a logistics plan developed by the construction team to bring trucks in and figure out the traffic patterns. We're a little early for that, but I think the site itself sets up well for staging and building internally.
Hi, I'm not sure if it's off the construction topic, and I'm not sure if you're the appropriate people to answer the question, but the density here seems to be outside of the city's comprehensive plan. Has that been addressed?
So the comprehensive plan doesn't have a specific density. It does list zoning districts that are appropriate, but there is not listed in it necessarily a unit per acre cap. From a development perspective, we think that this hits on a lot of the points of the Hopewell Woods character area, including the mix of uses, mix of types of housing. Again, it's a continuing dialogue, and understand that density is of a concern. But
for the residential piece.
Well, total people there per acre.
I think what we'd like is the comparison of the density of this development with the surrounding developments. What the densities are in 7 or Kelly Street, townhomes across from Hunter Street from where you're at. What are those densities so we have something to compare to?
Is that follow-up information that could potentially be provided either by staff or the development team?
Kelly Street is 10 units per acre approximately. This is 34.
Say that again?
Kelly Street property is approximately 10 units per acre, and this, from their own literature, says 34 units per acre.
So Kelly Street is 10 units per acre, and this is 34 units per acre. Okay.
Does anybody know what 7 is?
Does anybody know what's? So we don't know the answers to that, but I think that's a good question. And what I'd love for you to do is, if sir, you could make note of that question and send that to the input email, please. This is the type of thing that we need to know, is what questions aren't answered and what we need to get more information to you about. All right, I believe someone over here. Yes, ma'am.
So one of my biggest concerns right now is, I guess, about the traffic study. I live on Kelly Street, and it's been brought to my attention that the studies that are being planned to be completed on Buford and Jimmy Carter are going to be years from now, when this project is probably going to come before then. And there are problems on South Peachtree and West Peachtree now. The light on South Peachtree to get in and out is not long enough. There is no light at West Peachtree and Jimmy Carter, and it's very, very dangerous. And back in January, I was T-boned right there. So there are big concerns for me of the current traffic study, and that it wasn't a large enough study, and when those larger studies are coming, this is going to come before.
So do you have a question?
When is there a possibility before this gets approved to us bring those larger traffic studies before this gets approved?
Have those improvements done?
Have those traffic studies complete? I hear the traffic studies on Buford and Jimmy Carter aren't going to be until 2030. When is this plan?
No, I think some of those studies are in process, aren't they? The studies are complete. Those studies are complete. I don't know if they're public record or not, but they're in the process. So we can follow up on that. There are studies that have been done.
And when is this project, I guess, if it does plan to go through, when is this project planned to be?
So we would ideally start in the winter of this year, 2018, and be completed probably spring of 2021.
All right, who has, yes, sir.
I was curious, on this mixed use, there should be a retail component. Where is it going to be? What type of retail do you see? And where's the parking for the retail?
So it's all in this commercial building here. This is office and retail. And the parking is, there's, you can't see it very well, there's surface spaces all around the park, here, and then there's this deck parking as well. And there's a little parking lot right here, and parking here. So, as John had mentioned with the two different uses, the anticipation would be that these two buildings sort of cross-share parking here. So when the commercial's in use, people are at work and vice versa.
What type of retail?
It's sort of yet to be determined. We don't imagine this being, we imagine it being complementary to downtown, not similar. I don't know that we would get a restaurant here. I don't think there's enough density right here. And so, but it'll be something complementary.
So I have two questions, maybe three, whatever you're thinking about. My first question is, what is the height and width of the apartment complex on the right side of your plan?
The one that borders that.
So what's proposed currently over on the right side of the plan is a 4-story with a basement condition. So it ends up being 5 from grade. Now keep in mind, we've got, so existing buildings here.
I really just want to know the height and width of that structure you're going to put there. And
That's,
then we'll follow up.
that's 70 feet, and depending on how you measure height, from grade to ridge, 68 feet or so, from grade to median roof, 54.
So from the street up here to the track to the back of the building, that's about 400 feet. That's about 400, so it's like 70 feet tall, about 400 feet wide if you're standing in front of it. To the right of it, it's 7. If you're standing at my front door, you're looking at 70 feet tall and 400 feet wide. So my follow-up question is, which one of you wants to come and buy my house and live in a shack?
Okay. Next, who has it? Yes, ma'am.
So I realize my question is more of a general nature regarding construction, but I'm also on Hunter Street with a subdivision directly behind my house. And my understanding is that the construction hours in Norcross have recently changed, where construction cannot continue on until 10 o'clock at night. And so, as someone that is living directly behind a construction zone, what can we do to change that? Because hearing construction at 10 o'clock at night is completely unreasonable.
Is there someone who can speak to that? Is that, Mayor, do you know if that is it 10 o'clock? So you changed it for weekday, 10 o'clock on a weekday.
And how is that reasonable for people that live there, have kids, work the next day, to still be hearing construction noises at 10 o'clock at night?
I think that's a great thing to follow back up with your city council members and have further conversation on. So,
well, this was changed without any input from us.
Okay. So noted. That's all I can say is I can't answer your question and solve it tonight, but I think that it's made for the record here tonight, and follow up with me. Follow up with me. There we go. Thank you. I'm just trying to figure out who to talk to next. So I'll give you this.
Yes, sir. Go ahead in the blue shirt.
Are some of these units in the new apartments, are they rentals or these sold units?
They are rentals.
What's the price point planned to be?
Can you see that?
It's hard to-
The average range down here on the bottom.
Okay.
So the studio 1 bedroom is about $1,310 on average. It just is for a weighted average. 2 bedroom about $1,860, and 3 bedroom $2,325.
Okay, a follow-up question really quickly. On the townhomes on Hunter, our neighborhood is right there on Hunter and Kelly. We have parking spaces in front of our homes, and parking is pretty limited. Why would you not have parking in front of the townhomes for your townhome guests like most of the townhomes downtown do?
So, thanks for helping me answer this, but our right-of-way is really tight there on Hunter. And so what we felt like was a little bit more important was getting the parking around the park. So we either had to give it to the front of the townhome or give it to the park, and we felt like it would be used more and if it was around that amenity.
Okay, who's got a, put your hands out if
So,
you do not.
I have a follow-up question on the pricing. Where did you come up with these, and was there any attempt to do affordable housing balance between the different units? And do you expect that pricing to stand, or will it go up based on like the demand at the time things are finished?
So all of this is preliminary, or it would be 2.5 years from 2 years, from doing this. But this is what the market is giving today on Class A rentals, and this is, we have a whole range of units. So this is just a summary of where pricing is.
So that takes into consideration the amenities you expect to offer?
Correct, and it would start all the way at, we have some smaller studio units that would start at about $1,000 mark, and then we go all the way up to the bigger size units. We have some bigger 3 bedrooms in the adaptive reuse that are going to be $2,500 to $2,600.
And does each of those apartment units include one parking space?
One per bedroom.
One per bedroom, so the one bedrooms is one car?
Correct.
Okay,
2 bedrooms.
who has a microphone? All right, yes, sir. I knew there was another one. I couldn't
My
find
question is, I'm most specifically about the apartment buildings themselves. How does that really fit into the Hopewell Woods district? I mean, if I'm not mistaken, this would be the first of its kind, and it's all residential homes or little townhomes. So how does this kind of fit into the neighborhood?
It's the diversity of housing types. You don't have any, other than the Lillian Webb project that's been developed, there's nothing inside the city of Norcross that allows somebody, a younger person, to come live inside the city. They can't maybe afford a $350,000 townhome.
So regarding those $350,000 townhomes, how much do you guys propose those to be for the ones that are on the property?
There'll be a range of pricing too, but the average is assumed to be around $350,000.
Okay.
Thanks.
I'm one of the many seven townhome owners here tonight, and I got a question for basically who was the WestRock executive? Me. When Seven was conceived, Rock 10's name is all through our codes. And when I saw this development and realized that you're wanting to put a 5-story apartment building.
We're not wanting to put there, we're our developer, the developer.
Okay, well, okay. So your developer is asking to put a 5-story apartment building adjacent, within 20 steps of our townhome.
With clarification, WestRock is selling this property.
Right.
WestRock does not own it, and they have the right to sell their property. So
And they're- they
as
won't-
a facilitator, I feel the need to say that.
So it's shocking to see. I mean, if you do I did my own rendition of what that would look like if anybody wants to see it. But it's shocking, and that's why Ron walked out. He's one of the homeowners that was staring that down. And to be fair to Ben and Kim, I've talked to both of them on the phone and suggested that maybe they put some townhomes bordering our townhomes and move the apartment complex to the center. That gives us a buffer as well as Hunter Street a buffer. Hunter Street is single-family homes. And now they'll be facing some townhomes but it's not a 5-story apartment building.
Yeah, and just to address David's concern, we have had some discussions just recently and some consideration of creating a townhome buffer here, which is more consistent with the adjacent, internalizing the new construction more to the interior of the site. What we don't have a handle on yet is what that means. We were trying to keep these existing buildings. It may be that if this shifts more internal or central to the site in order to create that buffer and bring the scale down, then we're not sure how that relates to particularly this existing building in the center. But it's something that we're willing to explore to again help reduce the impact along this edge of the site.
My question is, what kind of a guarantee is there going to be to keep this a mixed-use development? Because a couple of years ago, a lot of people were here that night the meeting went on to midnight when they agreed that the Lillian Way Park was going to have no more than 100 apartments. It was going to be mixed use with, and they were saying all the different businesses. Well, in the long run, it got passed, and now it's back up to about 200 apartments. There's no businesses. It's not going to be live, work, play anymore. The only business is going to be the office management company at the corner of Holcomb Ridge and Buford Highway. All the businesses that were supposed to be there are gone. In other words, once everybody agreed and it got passed, then there's nothing you can do. They can make it more apartments. You can take away the townhomes. You can take away all the supposed businesses, because once it passes, and then everybody's just stuck with it. So what kind of guarantees are there that if this does pass, that it's going to be what it says and not turned into something else? And how many apartments are there?
So that, the answer to your first question is the design concept development requires us to include the site plan and a listing of all of the uses, the densities, the maximum number of units, the maximum height, all of those parameters. That will be a condition of the zoning. It basically approves a specific site plan. So that is the guarantee that you have, is that it will be that site plan unless somebody comes back through and tries to rezone it again. As far as the number of units, there's 325 of the flat apartment units and 60 townhomes. So that's based on the plan that you see here.
Are those all two-bedroom? That includes the adaptive over use. So it's a blend of the new construction and adaptive use.
So this is a corollary on the last question. You get your plan, everything's locked in stone. Would you walk us through what's going to be built first, what's going to be built second, what's kind of the timeline? Because my concern is I'm also resident of Seven, and Seven's been under construction for over a decade, and there's still about half of it or so that haven't been finished. And when they come in, they're going to have to finish it. They've got a plan to finish it, but it's still sitting there. And my question really is, what's to guarantee that you don't just come in and build a couple apartment buildings and then walk away and say, oh, we don't have the economics to build the townhouses yet, we can't cover the cost of the garage yet, so that'll come down the pipe. And 10 years from now, we're looking at 2 big apartment complexes and nothing else is getting finished.
So we talked a little bit about this earlier, but it's market demand is what happens with single family and then townhome sales. Right now, as I mentioned earlier, it is a very healthy townhome market, and when you have only 10 months of supply, when at the bottom of the recession, you had 32 months. It's vastly different. And so townhomes are harder. That's a harder question to answer, because that is market supply and demand, specifically for single family, because you have to have a buyer to build. With the rest of the project, everything essentially from the park over, with the exception of where the townhomes are for 7, that will all be done at one time. So when we purchase the property the next day, we would be out there starting construction. So that would be the public park, the commercial garage, everything. Yeah, the garage. We have to park the.
We can't build it and occupy the residential units, once those buildings are complete, by zoning, we've got to provide the required parking. So the structured parking is definitely a requirement to build and occupy the multifamily.
All right, sir, back in the room.
Yes, so you're planning to reuse 3 of the existing brick buildings from WestRock, but there's a 4th existing 3-story brick building with a basement. I was just curious why you're not planning to reuse that as well.
Yeah, part of it has to do with the site organization. As I mentioned earlier, these 3 buildings really frame this community green space along the Thrasher frontage. There's a larger metal building here that we don't feel is contributing. And then there are a couple of smaller structures here. We thought these 3 buildings were ones that work best in the plan.
So why couldn't you reuse that existing building to be part of the apartments? I'm assuming some of these brick buildings you're planning to turn into apartments or lofts.
The plan is to create lofts with both of these buildings, and then this be the commercial center, commercial and retail. I'm not sure specifically which building you're referring to, but again,
There's a 4th one, I believe it's about where, so your bottom right, kind of U-shaped apartment complex, right? So the planned northwest corner, I think, is about where there is another existing brick building right now.
We studied the footprints of them, and these were the best ones that we felt like could be adaptively reused most efficiently. So that's, and then squeezing everything else into the site plans is what we had to work with.
All right, there was a lady over here.
Have you done an impact study on what this will do, this 385 units to the school system?
Yeah. So this goes to Baldwin Elementary, Seymour Middle School, and then Norcross, and I guess the Paul Duke STEM that is opening next year. So you are basically, it's right at capacity for the elementary and middle school. Your high school is way over capacity right now, and it's the new high school I'm imagining. So that the high school shouldn't be an impact at all. But typically, especially in this price point range that we have, it's only about maybe 15% school-aged kids that are here. So we don't anticipate it being a big impact on the school systems.
So I've got a couple of questions. Like Sheena was talking about earlier, that intersection between, I think about the access and egress, to this area. Is it West Peachtree and Jimmy Carter? A lot of traffic back up there exiting the area in the morning, right? And you can sit at that intersection for 0 minutes, or you can sit there for 20 minutes waiting for somebody to make a left turn. So I think a wider traffic study would really be appreciated to understand the impact here. Plus, the Kelly is coming in with her townhouses. I would love to see a study. I live on Kelly Street. I'd love to see a study of what the impact of what this, in its proposed form, will do to housing values in the surrounding, 500 yards, on the points of the compass, right? I don't feel like there's a handle on, is it going to keep them flat relative to the market? Is it going to cause, some concerns, or up or down? There's a lot of new homeowners in that area who have invested an awful lot of money and want to see some preservation there. And then if we are going to be tearing down some buildings and things like that, I'd really like to know if there's any hazardous material, asbestos, dust, those kinds of things that will cause an issue for people who live, 100 feet away from this property.
So we can look into the various different studies is the first answer. The second answer on hazardous materials, I don't know the answer to that yet, but whatever there is, we have all, I mentioned to you, all of our, money comes from Goldman Sachs, AIG, Prudential, like, we do extensive environmental, it's over the top. So if there is anything, it will be very appropriately remediated and disposed of to the right locations and things. It should not be in any way harmful to anybody in the community.
So, my question is to piggyback off of the lady earlier that asked about commercial use, and this is proposed now, but does it really come down to what can be leased and what cannot be leased? And if it's not leased, then it becomes or you see traction, you're like, oh, we need to make a couple more apartments because we're not getting traction on the commercial side, or how does that work? Like, once it's accepted and passed, does it live like that? And if the commercial is not, leased up or getting traction, do you just sit on it until somebody moves in, or do you, switch halfway through the process and be like, oh, we need to add some more apartments?
You can't add more apartments. We'll be capped at a certain limit now. So we won't be able to do that, which I think is your main concern. But on the commercial side, vacant commercial space is bad for everyone. So there will be a point in time where if it is not leased or it's not able for whatever reason, we'll figure out how to activate it. And that may be more community spaces, fitness centers, things like that that are maybe maybe not a typical commercial use that you make. It's not necessarily a coffee shop or a restaurant, something like that. But we'll do something. We don't want dark, empty retail space anywhere.
Yes, ma'am. My husband and I are also residents of 7. We're actually in that corner. So given the current layout, we would see other residences from every single window of our house. Given the pricing that you have listed here, we actually just moved in September from Midtown, and this pricing is on par. So I'd love to understand how that's more profitable than putting in purchasable units, and how your target for who you're going to bring into these is going to be willing to pay those prices versus being able to live in Midtown where you can walk to innumerable businesses.
I don't understand your question on the profit side, but on the rental side, this is comparable market rents to this whole area, and part of the reason is because there's a huge lack of supply of rental product in this area, and so it's demanding rents that are frankly probably more than even in some Buckhead or Midtown locations. It's supply demand.
I would suggest maybe following up with her afterwards to define that question a little more for her. Let's see, sir in the back row. Yes.
It's always great to see people that care about the community. Thank you. My question, and I apologize if you've already gone over this, could you all break down a little bit more specifically your target market as it relates to age? I saw that you said 15% would be of school-age children. I think that's Summer Hour Middle School. No worries. We built a new middle school, that's great. But yeah, could you break that down for me?
On the demographic percent?
Age demographic.
So we ran but this would be, when you look at the demographic area, you do a 1 mile, 3 mile radius. These are the target people that are in those 2 biggest boxes. So you have your basically school aged, and then you have the, which are, you're just over that 15%, I said that 16%, and then I was, oh no, that's the boomers, I was very surprised by how many 55 and above people live in Norcross. So it's only about 16%. So this is literally doing pulling an ESRI data.
Okay, I'd like to ask, I'm going to let you ask your question in a second. Who has not asked your first question yet? Okay, I want to make sure I get to you.
So the city of Norcross is certified platinum through the Atlanta. The city of Norcross is certified platinum through the Atlanta Regional Commission, right here. And so what type, and we're one of two in the city, and I think it would be important for the city to certainly continue to build on that. What types of green building are you going to be doing? Whether it's in materials, or you're going to try and be certified, what kind of certifications? Because obviously you've got a lot of density here, so what other things are you going to be doing from a sustainability perspective?
So we always do, on the new construction side, we do something called an NGEH green certification. It's like LEED, but it's more for rental product. And then I honestly don't know on the adaptive reuse. I have to imagine that it's already highly sustainable. So we'll figure out what kind of certification we can get for those, because it's something that we also think is very important. Correct. We will do all those kind of things. We'll put in, I've heard that there is, I haven't been to WestRock at night, but I heard that there's like spotlights on the campus, so we'll lower that down, and it'll be pedestrian oriented lighting, it's LED, and on the sun time sensors and all that kind of stuff. So we incorporate all that into the project.
One quick point about that. The most sustainable thing that we can do, or anybody can do, is reuse the existing buildings. So that's why it's been a focus from the beginning to re-inhabit those buildings that make sense to do so. And the ones that we can't, as well as some of the other ground materials and concrete and asphalt, we'll crush and use and do whatever we can to be as sensitive to the sustainability as we can.
Okay, I think I'm next. My question is focused on the apartments. And as you can see, everybody here loves Norcross. We're so invested in our homes and our community. And my concern with the apartments is the turnover rate. And it seems like that you've worked with Alliance, I think you said, the apartments. And could you tell us something about the turnover rate? My concern is their investment in our community. If the turnover rate could be high, do you have pretty definite restrictions on the people, the residents who rent the apartments, how many people can be in one apartment? Since 7 will be looking at the back side of the apartments, my concern is, and I know this may sound silly, but towels over the railing, or, loud parties, or something that, like I say, we're proud of our community and want to keep it that way.
So we have lease restrictions, and inside there's things like you can't put your bike on your patio and things like that. So I can imagine we don't allow towels, but I don't know off the top of my head. So we are pretty strict on that. We're strict on the type of like dog breeds we have. The number of people in an apartment, yes, you have to sign who all the occupants are, and name apartment unit. I can get you some. We actually have pretty, the stuff that I address, at least the things that I've built, we tend to focus so much on design in the community and creating a place and a home for people that we have pretty low turnover in comparison to other comparable communities. And so we are, we don't just develop and construct it, we also manage through the whole process. So we bring our management team very, very early on during the development process, so we make sure we incorporate them, and they know what we're building, they know what the community is, and so they can tell that whole story to the renter, and then that's how you create the community.
Is there some place online that we can go in and see what your applications are for the
But I doubt we post anything like that. But you can, if you follow up, I can give you some information.
To know. That helps.
Exactly, I mean, we're not gonna share a lease that would be against,
No,
you know.
but I'm sure that there's probably reviews of your apartments that we can go online and see, reviews. I think that would be helpful.
Kim, quick question. You mentioned a couple of times that Alliance is going to design, build, and manage the property. How long does Alliance typically hold on to that relationship before they sell?
It totally depends on the partner and how long they own it. I mean, we have some projects that we've had for 15, 20 years. So it's all specific to that person, but it's all institutional capital. So it tends to stay, and what we tend to do is always keep, even if we don't own it with the partner, we keep the management, so we're always a presence.
What's the forecast for this property?
For this community? Oh, I hope you keep it for, I mean, our goal is to keep it, that's what we like to do. But I don't have the answer, because I don't have the partnership.
Yes, I'm also a resident of 7, and I have a question, and I'm going to be one of the residents that's going to back up into the apartment complex. So I would like to know, what kind of buffer, have you planned any type of buffer so we won't be looking right at the apartments, which I really don't want to do. And another question is, why did you go so many apartments when the complex is being built on Kelly? It's all residential, it's all townhome. There's not going to be any rooms there. That's all going to be, property owned situation there. Here, this is a mixed use, and you have apartments where there is going to be a turnover. As a matter of fact, that's one of the reasons why I left my previous community because of that. It looked like I moved back into it again. So I have a big concern about what am I going to be looking at when you build, how many apartments? It's 300 apartments, which you can count on 600 occupancies. What kind of buffer? I think we as residential owners are not, we want a buffer, we would like a buffer, we don't want to walk out the door and look at some, apartment complex. And also, another question I have also is, are you going to have on-site management 24 hours a day?
Okay, so the first one, I think we'd like to come back to you guys with a little bit of some site plan tweaks, because I think that the reaction to the building against 7 is probably going to change. So I think that we would like to probably figure out how to put more time right there to buffer you guys. So I think that's going to address some of your concerns. And then we professionally landscape everything, so there'll be, whether or not there's a fence through there or not, that's something that we have to work together to figure out if that's what you want or not. And then, let's see, on-site. So we have everything's kind of high security, access controlled throughout. We don't imagine this community being gated because we want it to be inclusive for the community. But all the buildings, you have to have your credentials with your access control to be able to get into them. So it's pretty high security from that standpoint. And then we always have courtesy officers and people like that that are on the property 24 hours a day. Your question, sir.
Yeah, so why does the plan refer to the apartments as new construction? Because it has townhomes and then others. Just wondering why that we don't call it apartments. That's my first question.
We wanted to separate, so the adaptive reuse is also residential. So
Just someone who's not at this meeting might just see the plan and not quite realize that was kind of that's the plan, that these were apartments. That's kind of why I was wondering that particular thing. Another question that I have is, okay, and this is more of, and I don't know if you can answer this or not, it may be more for the planning and the city is, it's been mentioned that this fits within Hopewell Woods. Well, all of the developments that have been approved in there lately have been pretty much in that area, townhomes, or now in this case, something even more dense. What is I mean, is this a mix, really? Because my understanding was more of a mix of perhaps townhomes and single-family homes. And we've got Kelly, we've got 7, we've got now this, even more. It's like, this is going the wrong way, it feels. And I know I'm getting opinionated here, but who can answer kind of what the overall plan is for that whole area and really how this fits in? I don't know where that fits in.
So there, in addition to the comprehensive plan, there's also a livable centers initiative study for this site. It was done in 2011, and it calls for 5-story office on this site. That's what the recommendation is. When the 2034 comp plan was adopted, this property was included entirely within the Hopewell Woods character area. And I'm reading from it right now. It says, continues to develop as a mixed-use area with a diversity of housing types, institutional and office uses, as well as limited commercial to support residents and area employees. We think we have each of those components in this proposed development. It talks about having a mix of housing types to accommodate varied incomes and life stages, young singles, families, empty nesters, etc. High-end infill development provides housing options for working professionals, and it also provides for higher density housing located in an area bordering the Atlantic PIB area, which is just planned northwest of the site. So we think that we are hitting on all of those components from a comprehensive plan compatibility perspective. And again, keeping in mind, this property is zoned light industrial. So it's not zoned for residential use right now. It's zoned for office or light industrial uses. So we're not taking a single family zone property and trying to zone it for apartments. We are taking a more intensively used zone property and effectively providing for a mix of uses that we think is more consistent with what the comp plan provides.
Right here next.
So I have a question about the green space, also with the commercial uses. So it's a twofold question. I'll try to make it really quick. So Norcross is severely needing some fresh, new retail, restaurants, maybe even a grocery, a small grocery store. I'm just giving my recommendation that those are some things that I've talked to the community, and those are things that excite the community. And as being something that's going to bring additional residents to that community, I think not having a grocery store, having retail could be more successful. Also, can you tell me more about the green space, what you guys plan to do there, what you would like to do there, and how that works in as a public space in a private area?
So I'm not a retail person, but the one thing I know that retail needs is people to come and shop and spend money. And what, part of the reason that we heard WestRock was saying is that there's not enough of these amenities and things for people, but you have to have people to have those uses, to have the retail, and Norcross isn't very dense, and that's what's part of the problem, is when a retailer does a reign for their demographics, they have to have a certain quantity, and that's what one of the biggest problems is with this area and this site, and that's why my understanding, and I'm not a retail person, so we have to get somebody with a little bit more facts behind them, but that's what my understanding of why they didn't get any offers from like a Kroger or Publix or somebody, because there's just not enough of the trade area around here to put something like that on.
Well, no, I'm saying as a part of what you're doing to add some of that component.
Yeah, part of the challenge, not only the marketability, which I think Kim was speaking to, but it also goes counter to some of the concerns with traffic and car counts, and all of a sudden, we've done a handful of grocery stores in urban developments, and the truck traffic for deliveries and time of day and trash trucks and cardboard balers, and it sort of takes on a life of its own. So it becomes a little bit of a logistical challenge to do a grocery store, but I'm sure that Kim has noted. What was the other question?
The public park, the private use.
How to activate the park. So I'll tell you my thoughts on the park, and then if Kim has a different approach. But the idea, like I mentioned before, the idea was to create a street framework within the overall campus, which currently doesn't really exist. To some degree it does, but it's all surface parking. But the idea is to create a block structure that allows you to frame the public park, on-street parking like a real urban park does. And then in terms of the program itself, we've talked about a variety of different uses that would benefit the community, whether it's more green space and lawn versus some hardscape that would support things like local weekend farmers market or other outdoor gatherings. Personally, that's most interesting to me, to bring that level of activity, even if it only occurs monthly or in the rest of the time, it's just a minute into the neighborhood, into the community at large.
So I have a couple of questions. I'm wondering, what are the lease terms going to be for the apartments?
They usually go from 12 to 16 months.
No 6-month leases?
No, 12 to 16 is our standard.
And I think you can kind of tell from the reaction what's happening here today. I know this is a work in progress and you're willing to make tweaks and changes. Are you willing to resubmit this with no apartments?
No.
I'm sort of speaking for the older residents, long-term residents, and I think overall, if we look at Norcross, slowly, we've got 200 apartments, 300 and something, high density, more rental. Those of us who are longer-term residents came here for a reason, and it's a homey, historic town, lots of volunteers, and it's a way of life. Certainly attracted myself and my wife, and I know a lot of people here, and we get involved. So I don't know how aware you are of that, but with the balance of all these rentals and with more land coming available, excuse me, and possibly the same thing happening, the whole nature of our town is going to change. And I think it scares people.
Do you have a question?
Not really. To answer your question on the over 50s, why we had more here, a recent lecture I attended by a professor from Austin University in Texas laid out facts and figures that gave the over 50s had more money, they spent it, they supported their town, and that's why the town is better off to have old people like us.
I just had to be fair, ask the other guy who had a question.
My name's Randy Beecham, and kind of in an odd situation here where I was on the steering committee that developed the comprehensive plan, and as part of that, I remember being over in City Hall, evening meetings, and we came up with, because we were required to do character areas in this comprehensive planning process, and we came up with the name Hopewell Woods for this character area that we're talking about. And we did talk about, and I know you read some of the things from the comprehensive plan, but we did discuss, and one of the elements of this area is Hopewell Baptist Church. And we talked about what is compatible with that. And again, an assumption that we made is that Rock 10 at the time was there forever and would be there. And we talked about what would be good for the area. And the place that's Kelly now was talked about as a possible retail and some of these others. But I did want to register with you that we talked about briefly no apartments in this area. And that was part of it. I don't know if we can work that through and pull them together and if that's helpful or not. But, well, I'm answering other people's questions. But I appreciate the time, appreciate you folks coming and talking to us about it. Thank you.
All right, listen, you have been waiting patiently. I keep skipping over.
I'm a patient person. I do have a question. There's a lot of passion that I hear going on in the room tonight. We do get involved and we do love our community. But hearing people's concerns, when do you plan to come back with another plan or an addendum to this plan?
I'm not sure we're gonna circle up either after this. I have no idea what time it is, or tomorrow, and then figure out what our next steps might be.
Would that be another public meeting?
Potentially.
And would that be within the next 6 weeks or?
Certainly, it's the next 6 weeks. Yeah.
Okay.
Probably more like the next couple weeks.
Thank you.
All right.
I was a little bit late to the meeting. Just a question regarding traffic in that corridor area. Has there been a traffic study conducted about?
Can we talk to you?
Yes, it is online. Yes, it's online and we can direct you to it.
My printer right in there.
What is the current density that's permitted on the property and what is proposed density?
So the site is allowed 40 feet in height.
In a square foot, total square foot?
It doesn't speak to square feet. So again, it's a density relative to the height of the building. So you can have 40-foot tall buildings in the N1 district. And again, it can be a variety of uses. There's not an FAR that's associated with that. The height, the 40-foot buildings, yes. Again, you would have to master plan the site to figure out how many buildings you could build and accommodate the parking. But the height, the density is effectively regulated by the height.
What is the total square footage proposed for the entire development?
The new proposed development is 550,000-ish, which includes the keeping of existing buildings.
Okay, great.
Would you consider, other than apartments, to have owner-occupied condos? Would you consider that?
Condominiums only work when you're selling townhomes for about $600,000 or $700,000. That's not happening in Norcross, so that those economics don't work.
I like people who's got some skin in the game, other than people that just move off.
Well, trust me, the owner has skin in the game. I mean, it is a very expensive development.
In China, they don't have much skin in the game, I'll tell you that.
Can you address a few items about infrastructure, like what quality are the streets going to be? Are they going to be eventually taken into the city street plan? What about the lights? Who's going to be responsible for maintenance of the street lights? What about signage? What about drainage, sewage? How's all that? Who's going to pay for all of that? And who's going to make sure that it maintains a high quality?
So this is a private development, so we would own and maintain all of those items. It wouldn't be done by the city. We'll put in all that.
Does the city have regulations to make sure it is done right?
Sure, we have.
In perpetuity.
There's plan reviews going to go through all that.
Not plans, implementation review. After
Sorry,
the
in
fact,
perpetuity.
five
If the city
five years from
like
now, is
streets
somebody
and
going to make
own
sure that the
forever,
streets aren't falling apart?
We can talk to the city about if they want to own them. I'd be okay with that.
Okay, we're going to only have time for just one or two more questions. So I've got two mics, or one mic out. So I'm going to let you answer. What I'd like to do is give you those, if you have a few extra questions, a chance to come up and ask or some follow-up questions in light of their time tonight. So, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for presenting. I'm new to Norcross. We moved here because it's a historic community. We moved from another historic community. And so we like it because of some of the things that the gentleman over here talked about, the community, the passion for the community, the quality of life, and things like that. So I live in the 70s. My wife and I bought the 70s. We liked it. We liked its proximity and stuff. I do have a question. So aside from the traffic study, aside from the 70-story apartment, aside from the pricing, aside from the density, I don't have too many concerns. question is in historic Norcross, what is the tallest building that we have today, commercial, and what is the tallest building we have today, residential? Is there anything that comes close to 70 feet? And if not, what would give us the precedent for sticking within the community or the feel and touch and feel of historic Norcross to move to a 70-foot facility, apartment complex?
Does anybody know the answer to that question? Robert?
Yes, I'm Robert with P Development. Yes, the tallest building we have in Norcross is at 6050 East Industrial Boulevard, the hotel.
And how tall is that?
I believe it's 8 stories.
14.
14 stories?
Talking about historic Norcross. Historic Norcross.
Not the city of Norcross, historic Norcross, please.
If it's historic Norcross, I believe the code is mostly C3 zone properties. I think it's going to be 35, 30 feet.
So this would be twice that.
To be clear,
As proposed.
that is not a C3 zone district. Downtown here would be a C3 zone district for comparison.
Okay. Last question is lady in the back room here.
You described this area as an urban community, and I feel like I fall into your demographic of a millennial working professional. But the reason that I moved out here and bought a house in downtown Norcross was because I wanted to live in the suburbs, which is what this is. So why do you guys feel like this area is urban when it's actually the suburbs?
So I consider it urban from a walkability. I don't consider it urban from a density standpoint.
But what you're bringing in would bring in the density that you're talking about as urban.
I guess it's dense for Norcross, but it's not dense for most other. Even other town, if you start comparing other town centers, Duluth, Swanee, it's very comparable. What we're proposing is very comparable, if not lower density than what many of those communities are.
But the campus, even as it exists now, is not a suburban residentially scale block. I mean, it's a commercial campus. So
Yeah, but it's not
I
apartments.
understand the comment, but at the same time, we're not taking a gridded multifamily street and trying to obliterate it. We're trying to take the existing campus and help improve it. So.
All right, so I think that answer, that covers the time that we have tonight. Again, I do want to allow for some time for some of you to do some follow-up and more intense questioning. Be kind. But I want to thank you for some open, honest dialogue. I apologize if I came off a little strong and cut some of you off, but that's what I'm here to help do, is to keep this forum moving forward and keeping those questions moving in the right direction. So thank you for caring enough to be here tonight. I have to say I commend you again as a community for coming together and having just the hard conversations. So thank you for being here. Oh, also, your input on the bottom of your survey is an email address. WestRock Redevelopment.
Yes, Paige, we didn't recognize. Please recognize the staff that's been here tonight. They fielded an awful lot of questions for this morning. Continue to field some more questions. And as I said, we are an engaged community. You didn't let me down tonight. So I want to thank Rudolph Smith, Tracy Robb, Chris Homer, Charles Smith, Kate Kitchen, Pam Ledbetter, Sonia Isaac, and Robert Tackett. If you have some additional questions, if you have additional questions, email to WestRock@gmail.com. We are dismissed.